This letter comes from Bina Siegel in Australia. Thank you for the invitation to celebrate Eitan's life. I love that saying, as it means so much memories of an unforgettable man, a gentle cowboy. I feel so much love in my heart thinking about the time when I was there that winter 2016, after the Americana 2015. You were so kind to me and made me feel so welcome. I loved every second. For me, it was more than a dream coming true. When you two gave me here in life for having me there for almost 6 weeks. The fun time in Scotland, and then the gathering and the opportunity to ride cowboy. Debbie, you are such an inspiration and a wonderful person. For all you put out, for every hand you reach out, for every smile you share. Eight was made for this world, to be a great, unforgettable horseman. And his wonderful wife on his side played an important role in this chapter. Thank you, Debbie, for everything you do. You are a role model. I love you.
On behalf of Debbie and Sharon, I want to welcome everyone here for Eitan's send-off. This is a tough one. Most of you folks knew Eitan as a horseman. He was one of the world's finest, there's no doubt about it. He had an amazing career. I'd like to share a story or two from the vantage point of the Daly family, who are not horsemen. It will illustrate a different type of Eitan, I think, than some of you may be aware of. My brother and I bought the ranch property in 1989, and our vision back then was what a wonderful little parcel for our 4 daughters to come and play. We've got a little creek, we have a little lake, we have a little ski boat, just a wonderful place for them to come up and play. And that was our vision. Just really simple stuff. Now that vision vanished pretty quickly when we met Eitan. We needed someone to do a little bit of work around the property, and we were referred to Eitan to do some carpentry. So I called him on the phone and he said, well, let me come up and look at the property. He was living in Sonoma at the time, and he agreed to drive up to Grass Valley. We met on one of the vacant parcels we had next to our house, and my wife Jojo prepared a nice little picnic for us, and we sat there under a tree and just got to know each other over an hour or so. He then got up from the two of us, Jojo and myself, and went on a walkabout. He was gone for 45 minutes or an hour, looking all over the property. I didn't realize at the time what he was doing. I certainly realize it now. He was scoping out the property for further development. And here's a guy that I had known for 45 minutes. He already had the design of all the barns and everything in his mind, and he actually slipped up and told Jojo, this is where the barn's gonna go. I mean, presumptuous? Only he could get away with that. No one else possible. A few weeks later, he decided to come and temporarily live at our house while he did some work. And this kind of you all get a chuckle about. A few weeks later, he arrived in a rusty old Ford truck, towing a rusted out horse trailer with a horse inside by the name of Piccolo, along with his German Shepherd Elko, several bags, I want to state, no suitcases, bags of clothes, and a large bag of dog food. I don't know if that was for him or both. What this reminded me of, for those of you that know John Steinbeck, there's a character in the novel, The Grapes of Wrath, and I think of Tom Joad when I hearken back to that sight of this fellow driving into our property, that almost homeless. It was quite funny. Well, that 10 to 15 day period that I hired him to do some work, he wouldn't let me pay him. And I'm going to myself, something's going on here. His mind's, churning away. And sure enough, it was, because 36 years he lived there. And he loved that property so much. And he was, I think, very happy there. Although, a couple of years after moving in, he started to get a little lonely. And he had heard of a horsewoman in Auburn that he may have met previously years ago that was very pretty, who recently was divorced. He came to me one afternoon and said, "Evan, will you take a ride with me down to Auburn at the Ford dealership? I want to meet a gal there that is very attractive, and I might need your backup." What that meant, I had no idea. Okay, I mean, I am a married man, you know that. So he just wanted some additional emotional support, I think. He made a very good impression on Debbie, and she agreed to come out in 2 or 3 days and go for their first date on horseback. On the way back from this meeting, Eitan and I talked in the truck and said, we really have to make this a very memorable afternoon. What are we going to do? So we hatched up this idea that they take horses out, and there was a 300-acre parcel contiguous to our ranch, and it had hills and trails and everything, and we discussed, wouldn't it be cool if you took Debbie way up on top of the hill, he knows what the hill was, and we're going to have some fun there. We're going to dig a rectangular hole, put in the hole an ice chest with a few beers and a few soft drinks, close the lid, and put leaves and twigs on top of it. And what you're going to do is you're going to ride up with Debbie. You're going to get off your horse, hold the reins, help Debbie off, and you're going to sit down right next to the covered up cooler. And of course they started to talk, the two of them, and when Eitan came back and told me, he said it went perfectly. It was along the lines of, gee, Debbie, I'm kind of thirsty. And Deb goes, yeah, I am too. Well, here, wait a minute. He dusts off the top of the lid, opens it up, ice down beer and soft drinks. I mean, this is classic Eitan stuff. You know, how could Debbie not have fallen in love with a guy like that? Great sense of humor. He's a pretty dapper fellow too, I might say. Smart, charismatic. There are infinite stories that we all have about this gentleman, and I'm not going to bore you with very many of them, but I do have one that I think is worth. I came back to the ranch one day, and I looked down towards the barn, and there was a sheriff's car there, and Eitan in cuffs. I mean, oh God, what now? This is a new low for him, by the way. It was accused of grand theft. What Eitan had done is he needed some cedar logs, and so he's going to go out and find a couple of tall cedar trees. Now, unfortunately, he did not harvest them on our property. He harvested them on the neighbor's property. And the neighbor looked out the window and saw him towing the logs behind the tractor all the way up to our house, and then made the phone call to the sheriff. You really can't refute what he had done. I mean, you can't pick up the logs and get rid of them. There they are, prima facie evidence that grand theft. So, of course, he asked for my guidance in this, and I ended up meeting with the neighbors, and they accepted a little financial payoff to get the cops to leave him. So uncuffed he got, and we have chuckled about that pretty much ever since. As I stated, we cared for Eitan, knowing that he was a great horseman, but that wasn't the reason we cared for him. He treated my family, my 4 girls, my brother, his wife Keiko, with grace and with a lot of love. He was just a tremendous fellow to spend time with, and that's the side that we really got to know him and appreciate more than anything. As an example, he loved to jump in the pool with our daughters and throw them up in the air, and they'd splash down and they'd say, "Oh, Eitan, more." And he had a big smile on his face, and it was just lovely. Oftentimes we would leave the ranch on a Sunday and head back to the Bay Area, and when the kids would say goodbye to him, he would tear up. He became very attached to our family and our family to him. He had one wish in his life that he kept saying to Debbie and me, and that wish was that he could spend whatever time he has at Wolf Creek Ranch. And of course, my brother and I, wouldn't want anything other than that. And his other wish was he wanted to die there. And unfortunately, that wish has come true now. He died with dignity. He died with grace. I miss him tremendously, as you all do. He was a unique, bigger than life. He was truly one of a kind. So that's my spiel. It's time for a couple other people to say something. I have a list here, and I'll call one at a time. Okay, Jenny.
Okay. I am normally a very confident and able public speaker. I am not going to guarantee that's going to happen today. 8 was a big part of my life for a relatively short period of time. I met 8 in April of 2011. I had long admired him as a fellow Morgan lover, and I was aware of his demise at the World Equestrian Games, so was grateful he was brought back to life and was able to continue on with his life purpose, which from my very narcissistic point of view, his life purpose was to make me a great horsewoman. So I came to my first Eitan clinic at Kurt and Terry's in Washington in the spring of 2011. So that was right, it was just 6 months after he had, after the World Equestrian Games where he had died the first time. I came looking for a mentor. I came looking for improvement and guidance in my horsemanship. And I was challenged that weekend, and I was inspired. And I left changed. Then later that summer, he contacted me to ask if I could help him with some writing he wanted to do. Turns out he had been reading my blogs, which, like him and 200 other people. I don't know how he came across my blogs. It was pretty much my self-ramblings on my struggles in horsemanship. And whatever it was in there, he saw some potential, and he thought that he and I could collaborate. And that was the beginning of a beautiful friendship between Eitan and I. We seemed to speak the same language, even though his first language wasn't exactly English, but I was a good Eitan interpreter. And he could tell me his thoughts, and he could tell me what he wanted to say, and I was able to put it into words for him. When we spoke about horses, I was enthralled and obsessed with learning every nugget and every morsel that this man had to share with me. Soon I was also devoted to him. I don't do anything halfway, and my love and admiration for Eitan was the same. I revered that man. The time that we spent working on our book was challenging. As any of you who knew Eitan well knew that he could be a perfectionist. He was very particular about the wording, and he wanted to make sure that I got it just right. And so I would write, and then thank you, and then, okay. And then he would pick through the wording, word for word and period by period, until it was exactly what he wanted to say. The early mornings spent quietly talking with Eitan while he went back over his years with horses and what they had taught him, both good and bad, forever shaped my interactions with my own horses. I will never forget those mornings. I would come down from upstairs and Deb would still be in bed, and Eitan would be, he had slept in the recliner in the bedroom, and he would call me into the bedroom, and I would sit on the stairs, and he would tell me about some of the things that he remembered about his time with some of the horses. And a lot of the times in those early mornings, he would tell me about his regrets and the things that he wanted to change. And those are the things that stuck with me the most. And his dream for finding a better way for people and horses was the thing that spoke the most to my heart. Eitan imparted to me his love of the horse. He shared his passion for learning, which never dimmed. He was an amazing intellectual mind. He and I shared the drive of perfectionist that made competition both our biggest drive and our biggest foe. In 2021, my life shattered, and I had to make some hard choices. And walking away from our CD program was one of the hardest. I don't know that Eitan ever understood, because aside from some very brief Facebook messages, I didn't get the chance to talk to him about it. But early in 2022, before we lost Santa Fe, I sent him a message thanking him for everything he had taught me and the gift of his knowledge, and his response was quick and simple, and it dwells in my heart. He wrote back, "I love you, come see me." I didn't see Eitan after 2021. That was the last time I got to spend some time with him. He came up to our place and did a clinic. He got to ride Santa Fe one last time. But I think we said everything that we needed to say. I hope he knew and believed that I loved him. Even if I couldn't come and see him, I wasn't in a place where I could do that. I hope he can see what I have done with the knowledge that he gave me. What started out as a desire for canter pirouettes is now 100% about what my horses and I can accomplish as partners. Every interaction I have carries the lessons that Eitan taught me. I am forever changed for the better, and I will hear his voice in my head and in my heart for the rest of my life. They say that people enter into your life for either an age or a stage. If you look at the 10 years that Eitan and I were intimately entwined, you could easily say that that was a stage. But I can tell you it was an age, because the things that Eitan imparted to me about kindness and partnership and horsemanship and a thirst for knowledge and a desire to always learn will live on in me for the rest of my life. Thanks, Eitan. This humble Idaho cowgirl is forever changed.
Debbie, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to speak about Eitan. Wow, what do you say, or where do you start with a great man like Eitan? The young boy from Israel who changed the horse world. Eitan and I treated each other like father and son, like he did with a lot of you guys. Jenny, I know he thought of you as a daughter. He mentioned it many times. We traveled with Cowboy Dressage. I was one of the partners in Cowboy Dressage, and I set up all the courts and arranged all the courts for Eitan. So when we went to Europe, and some of the stories I could tell you about him over there, he was always getting in trouble. Eitan was known for his love and devotion to his wife, his family, and to his homeland. One of the greatest accomplishments he had was become an American citizen. Anyone who knew Eitan also knew they had a fondness for donuts. Always had to have the donuts. He's a legendary horseman, true horseman, and he could read and become one with a horse like no other man I'd ever seen. There was no problem he couldn't solve with a horse given enough time. He'd look at it another way. Many days. Jenny and I would be there, we're looking to do the book, and why can't we get this horse to do this? And he would look at it, try something new. His legacy is that he taught all of us. He shared his education of horses, which is unusual for trainers to really do, to share with the public all the secrets of horses. And he freely shared that knowledge through his books and his clinics with his humor. He had a witty humor, and it was infectious. I mean, he can control a crowd like nobody else. He'd befriend you without you even knowing it. Next time he saw you, he remembered your name and he knew right where he met you at. He had a huge impact and involvement with the Morgan horse breed, and some of you may know he's one of the creators of Western Dressage, but Cowboy Dressage was his baby. We went to Germany once to the European Horse Expo, and we introduced Cowboy Dressage for the first time. We did a demonstration at night. There must have been 5,000 people in the arena. And when he stood up and said, "This is Cowboy Dressage, we have one rule, be kind to the horse." It was silent. And when he finished that statement, everybody stood up and started applauding. Gave me chills, still does. And then he turned around and made them all laugh with one of his statements. I first met Eitan at a Western Horse Expo down in Sacramento. The first story he told me was about his challenges when he came to the United States. Coming across the United States, he crossed riding the Greyhound bus. He knew very little English, and the only two words he knew about food was hot dogs and hamburgers. His accent, when he said hamburgers, came out ham-boogers. And he said everybody kept laughing at him, he didn't know why, so he just ordered hot dogs. Then he learned to just say, "I want a burger," and they knew what he wanted after that. So that was his introduction to the United States. And the United States at that time gained a wonderful horseman. We held a clinic, I think Jenny was at this clinic, when he, one of the times, he'd hold these small clinics at his house, 4 or 5 people, no more than that, so he could have personal attention with everybody. And I was there helping him, lending him, getting horses ready, and he rode Santa Fe out, and rode him in the covered round pen, and he gave each of us a turn to ride that horse. He looked at me and simply handed me the reins and said, with his usual humor and colorful language, "Wyatt, don't F it up." He didn't build confidence in very many people. So, Eitan lives on in all of us. Several of the students who couldn't be here today called and asked me to publicly thank him. BJ LeMasters, Kelly Rose, Nani, I'm sure Sabina, there's As I was driving up here, people were asking, is it going to be live broadcasted? They wanted to see this. People from around the world wanted to know. So, 8, if you can hear me, you can go have all the donuts you want now. You earned it. And I'll try not to F it up. Thanks, 8, for all the memories. We love you, old man. And as he would say, happy trails, my old friend. It's been quite a party. Thank you.
I'm not going to be here real long. Just a few things I want to share about Eitan. First time I met Eitan was probably 40 years ago, 45 years ago. Santa Rosa, he was sitting on a fence, no cowboy hat on, no cowboy belt buckle. He might have had a pair of boots on, and he was just watching all the horses show. Didn't see him again for another year. In that year, he had a couple horses, had a cowboy hat on and a belt buckle. And after that, he just sort of flared up and became Eitan. He was sort of self-taught in everything that he did, and I appreciate that a lot. When I became involved in cowboy dressage, Eitan tried to get me to come in when they were at Western dressage. And I went to one of the deals, and that wasn't anything that I thought I wanted to be associated with. It wasn't what I did with my horses. So then a little while after that, they had a breakup with that, and he called me up and he said, Garn, you gotta come up, I got some new stuff, we're not doing this anymore. And I sort of postponed it, and he kept bugging me. So I jumped on my Harley, left Auburn, came to Grass Valley, and I was there for 6 hours. He did exactly what I thought should be done in cowboy dressage. And I have a lot of respect for that because we had a lot of conversations. As we went on in our lives together, probably some of the best times I ever had with Eitan and Eddie was at the finals when I would go to their trailer and he'd be sitting there in his underwear. And we would talk about the horse shows. We would talk about cowboy dressage. We would talk about different things. There was good memories. A lot of things got accomplished there. But Eitan and I were sort of a little bit opposite. You know, he liked limelight. He liked the pictures, and he liked to talk. I don't like pictures, and I don't like to talk, except in clinics and lessons. You know, he's the type of guy that once you got to know him, you know, there were good days and bad days with Eitan. He had his own opinion, and sometimes the opinions other people had didn't necessarily agree with him, but he would listen occasionally. You know, and I was fortunate that we had enough respect for each other that he listened to a lot of things that I had to say. I have something I just want to read, and then I'm going to be done. It is something I wrote when my wife lost her good horse. And Eitan to me is not what he is or what he was. It's who he was with his horses. That's more important to me than anything else. So this is something I wrote probably 10 years ago. It's when my wife lost a horse, but I think it fits how Eitan is with his horses. It says, lead them and they will follow. Follow them and they will lead. Forgive them, give them a pat, tell them you thank you. Show them you care. Find a place in your heart for them, and they will find a place in theirs. Watch them, study them, understand them, and they will do the same to you. Helping them enjoy. Helping them enjoy helps you enjoy. Showing them true self-carriage will give you true self-carriage. Allowing them to find their place in life will give you a place in their life. When their life ends, you think yours does too. Your love for them will be forever, as theirs is for you. Your companionship, your partnership will last a lifetime, giving you memories to cherish. This is the true handshake, the handshake between horse and rider. Recognize this, for both of you have been truly blessed. That's how I think about Eitan.
I wrote my speech down ahead of time because I knew I might be a little emotional. So as we all know, we're here to celebrate our dear friend, Eitan. He was my friend, mentor, and a father figure for a huge chunk of my life. Eitan lived a long, full, and deeply productive life as we know it. He wasn't just a great horseman. Though he won countless world titles and achieved more in the arena than most could dream about, he was not just an incredible showman that could hold 60,000 people breathless watching him and compadre or Santa Fe. He was a visionary who also founded entire new equestrian discipline, cowboy dressage. And through it, he brought together many of us, thousands of people who shared his love for the horse, for the harmony and kindness in the saddle. I first met Eitan and Debbie at the Wolf Creek Ranch in early 2000s, and from that day, our paths are never parted. We shared everything: laughter, tears, long nights, early mornings, cooking, singing, sometimes arguing, fearlessly fighting, and then laughing again. We walked the road of friendships together, celebrating life, and always, always celebrating our horses. So much, or what you know about the horse, I learned from Eitan and Debbie. They cared more deeply about well-being of animals than anyone I've ever known. Cats, dogs, horses, all were family in their house. For Eitan, there was never a decision about my horse or his horse performance that he didn't begin with one question to me: is this good for your horse? That was his guiding principle, and it became mine too. There were so many lessons Eitan taught me, and I will still hear his voice every time I'm alone with my horse. I will share with you Eitanisms, that I call them, that I'll take them with me into my future. Rule number 1, don't do anything stupid when I'm not around. If you can't control his feet on the ground, don't even try to get on him. Have a clear vision in your head when you're riding. The horse will actually take you there. It is better to have 3 perfect steps than a lope around this arena in not perfect shape. And then, of course, there were the other lessons in life, not just horses. Why eat vegetables if pasta is so much joy? Why are you telling me not to eat gluten if everything I love has gluten in it? Eitan, how did you get here? Well, your staff sent him. I said, who? A Uber. He came and picked me up, a nice guy. He called Uber. When you open your bag of snacks, don't make too much noise. You make other people on a diet miserable. Don't be stupid and forget pickles when you're serving hummus and olives. If everything else fails, your job, your horses, you can always come here to make meatballs for me. The only really good thing about you is Coco. Don't try to win, be a little better. You have to be a lot better, or they're going to give it to somebody else. The only thing good about you lately is Roger. He's nice. I can only visit if you make me pancakes every Sunday. Keep your life simple. Buy a little small house in Grass Valley. And of course, you should be lucky that I am even listening to you. Each of those lines, some funny, some wise, some little bit of both, is a snapshot of Eitan. Brilliant, stubborn, blunt, brutally honest, selfish, selfless, endlessly witty, deeply kind, and always teaching even when he pretended not to do. Eitan legacy lives in every rider who ever found joy in partnership with their horse. It lives in every moment of harmony between horse and human. He has so inspired us to achieve. And for me, as for many of us, he will live in our hearts, in our memories, in our laughter. In every quiet ride, we will still hear his horse reminding us to be better, to be honest, to be kind, and don't forget the pickles. Thank you, Eitan, for everything, for your friendship, wisdom, your laughter, your lessons, for shaping many lives. We will miss you, and we will keep riding, learning, laughing, cooking, just like you taught us. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm a crybaby, but I'm going to try really hard not to do this. Anyway, my name is Mickey, and I am the founder of Western States Horse Expo. Oh boy. It all began, oh stop it. It all began in 1997. I saw all these crazy ads for this show called Eitan in Kentucky. It's just like endless, my gosh, whose budget is this? And so I just had to go. So I did, I went and saw John Lyons and Clinton Anderson, who was a peewee, and Guani Ponyboy. Who are these people? But then I'm sitting there in the arena, and these lights come on, and this amazing animal with this amazing man comes in with a silver glove dancing to Michael Jackson. I'm just like, as a horse person, I'm thinking, look at that confirmation. Look at that relationship with that horse. And when I say confirmation, I mean Eitan and the horse. So anyway, I pretty much obviously thought I could do better and came back to Sacramento and built the event. So here's we go. But I gotta get that Morgan guy. How am I gonna get this guy? People are going to love him, only to find out that he was in my backyard. Shoot, I only want international. I only want big names to get draw. Oh well, so on we went, and well, that didn't last too long. Eitan was with us in 2000. And really the rest is history. He was there almost every year, and we watched everything grow, and a lot of you here met him there, and the cowboy dressage took off there, as far as introducing it to new people, and so on and so forth. But what I do want to say that I did have to write, how many like-minded he pulled together. I think one of my favorite phrases was light hands, and how you use your light hands when you're doing your cowboy dressage. He touched so many people who embraced his style of horsemanship, all in, or people who simply took away aspects of his thoughts and teachings. Who he has affected goes far beyond our wildest dreams. What was snort? I know Eitan is resting in peace with that beautiful stud. That is all I have to say about that. And I take great comfort in knowing that. Thank you.
My name is Lynn Ringrose Moe, and I met Eitan many years ago when I lived in Sonoma County, and I went to look at a horse at Michelle Desiano's, and Michelle goes, "Come meet my colt starter." And I was looking at a horse for a student, and here's this man with incredible blue eyes, and I don't think he spoke much English, because he didn't say very much. And that was the first time I met Eitan, and then I lived in Sonoma County and rode in dressage in the wine country, where many of you know Eitan performed several times for that event. And so our paths kind of crossed back and forth, and then Western dressage came along, and I thought, perfect, because I was a dressage person, and I was also raised in the foothills of California with the California bridle horses. And I was like, there's so many similarities, there has to be something that could come of this. And I heard about Western dressage and I looked into it and I met Debbie and Eitan again and kind of jumped on board with that because it was the closest thing. And then Debbie and Eitan brought me on the Western Dressage Advisory Board. And then we had to be on a conference call one night. And I'm not a big fan of meetings. And Eitan and I were on this call, and there were about 13 people, and 2 people talked for almost 2.5 hours. I was never so happy to get off a call. So, if you know Eitan, my cell phone rang at 5:30 a.m. the next morning, and I looked and I go, oh, good Lord. Okay, hello? He goes, Lean, what you think of that meeting last night? And I said, well, I think we're in trouble. I don't think this is going in the direction that we were hoping it would go. He goes, what you think if we do it ourselves and we call it cowboy dressage? And stupid me, I said, sure, that sounds great. Let's do that. So that was in February. By May, Eitan had written a full set of tests. We had built a website. We had rules and guidelines, and we were up and going. And I was still running a full-time dressage barn at the time, which meant I was working late into the nights to get my part of the work done. And he was, as you know, he is a whip cracker, that guy. He kept after us. And Debbie, God bless her, because she was amazing also. And so we started this. But before all that happened, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was still doing Western dressage, and we were just starting the cowboy dressage stuff, and this I will always remember. I called Debbie and I said, I don't know if I can do this because I'm sick and I have to do this stupid cancer thing. And Debbie talked with Eitan and she said, Lynn, we will wait for you. And I will never forget that. And that is the spirit of cowboy dressage, that everyone's included. We're inclusive, not exclusive. We created a community of people like no other on the planet. I've been able to travel and I meet the same wonderful people everywhere I go, and I give credit to that, to Eitan and his vision for this, and for Debbie as his partner in managing everything else behind the scenes. It's truly been an incredible ride. And he was a brilliant, brilliant, difficult man at times. But we all loved him dearly. And man, could he make you think. You thought you had it all. You thought you knew something. And then he would start telling you something else. And then never tell him that he's wrong, because he'd already done the research. And he already had the proof. Because I remember when he was telling me my horse had a 4-beat lope. Now this is an FEI dressage horse. And I was like, I don't really think so. And so then he slowed it down frame by frame. Because, you know, he was brilliant with the computer also and the video camera. Frame by frame, and there it was. And from that day on, I never argued with him. I would just listen to what he had to say. But we were all truly blessed to know him and have him in our lives. And I hope everyone in this room can carry what he taught you forward and spread it around, because it's some really beautiful, amazing stuff. Thank you.
So Eitan had a whole heck of a lot to be proud of. But there was no one he was more proud of than his daughter Sharon.
I didn't write anything down. It's all in my head, but, what? Yeah. First I'll say that I live in Israel. I landed last night. I'm super jet lagged. I'm having like word retrieval issues, but I'm going to try to do it. And with me in spirit is my husband, Don, and our 3 children, who sadly only got to know him in snippets, but adored him, and we're proud of him. And my middle son, Tomo, is carrying his spirit on in real life. They're very similar in a lot of ways, only the good ways. So I'll just and also the other people he left behind in Israel is his sister Atara, who is very, very close to him. Didn't see him a lot since he moved to the United States, but loved him very dearly, and really wanted me to pass that she's here in spirit also with all of us. So to give a little context from the other side of the pond, I'll tell you that in the Jewish tradition, when someone passes, we sit Shiva for 7 days. And it starts the day the person dies, and it's this tradition that you put up a notice that a loved one has died. It's that the immediate family members sit Shiva. And in the old days, we pasted death announcements on the walls and printed them in the papers. Now it goes in Facebook and whatever else is going on. And then for 7 full days, you have literally a parade of people coming into your house from morning until night, bringing tons of food, because we're Jewish, that's what we do, we feed grief. And it's friends, and it's family, and it's friends of family, and it's kids of friends, and friends of the kids, and it's literally a party for 7 days. And you tell a lot of stories, you've got pictures, you have videos, and it's kind of chaos, and at the end of the day, you fall asleep exhausted. But what I realized, because it's my first time sitting Shiva, was that through this really crazy process of telling stories over and over and over again, you sort of create this library of memories for yourself that are going to follow you out of the mourning period. And you get to put aside some of the less sweet memories and bury them with the person who has died. And you're left with the library of just wonderful memories, which I'm finding I see in my sleep and I hear in my head. And those are the memories I'm going to share with you a little bit today. And most of them, all of them actually, are going to predate when all of you have met him. I will say actually that I wasn't sure I was coming today. I came in March. It's a long flight. Things are not so simple in Israel right now. It's not so simple to leave kids behind. And when I came in March, I made the decision that I prefer to come when he's alive and spend some time with him, even if it was at the expense of coming after he died. And when Debbie told me she was going to do this memorial, I knew I had to be here, but I was going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and did I want to come alone? And I just want to say before I launch into my memories that I'm really, really happy to be here. I don't know most of you. I have wonderful memories with the Dailies. As growing up and as you were talking, I had more and more of them. And Debbie, of course, I can't imagine not being here. But looking at this room and seeing the love and how many people loved here, and I'm feeling really grateful to be a part of it, and feeling comforted, even though I haven't actually had a conversation with them. But so here are my memories, and I jotted them down so I wouldn't forget them as we were talking. So when we came to the United States, my father was working, and there's different variations of this story, but he was working. And he would come home, and I would wait for him to come home every day, because in his pockets he had little packages of Haribo gummy bears. And that's what, and I just remember every day he would walk in the house and he would have it in a different pocket, and I would have to find what pocket it was in. Later on in life, and I told Debbie this morning that I'm realizing that many of my memories are related to food with him. But, and apropos donuts, when my parents divorced and he was living in a complex in Davis, and I would spend every other weekend with him in the reception area of the complex on Saturday mornings, they had donuts. And I would wake up before him. Back then he didn't wake up at whatever hours he was calling you at. And I would go and I would stock up, I would get a plate and I would get just a huge stack of donuts. And I would bring them back, and he had his old-fashioned donuts and the glazed donuts, and I had the ones with the chocolate and sprinkles. And in that same time period, he had had some kind of eye surgery, and he had to have patches on his eyes. And we would go in the evening at the dark, and we'd stand next to the main road in Davis, and he would guess from the headlights, the shape of the headlights, what car was going by, and hours. And I'd be like, yeah, you're right, Dad, even though I had no idea, because I know I'm doing, but yeah, you're right. See, I learned really soon, early. We loved going to Chinese food. We would order the same thing every single time, our sweet and sour pork and our cashew chicken, and we'd bring it home. And ironically, it's what my kids still order today when we have Chinese food. And then we would go to Baskin-Robbins, and he hated taking me to Baskin-Robbins because he would order his Jamocha almond fudge, and I would taste every single flavor in 31 flavors until I finally decided on mint chip. And he'd be like, come on, kid, come on, kid, come on, kid. You know, he wasn't the most patient of people. When I say come on, kid, it's because he called me kid my entire life. All the way up until the day he died, he called me kid. And unless he was talking about me, and then he would call me the kid. And I remember in my 20s, I was working at a veterinary clinic. And I was at the reception desk, and another one of my colleagues answers the phone, and I hear her say, no, I'm sorry, we don't have any goats here. And I'm like, huh? And then she asks another question, she hands me the phone, she says, it's your father. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, why did she say they like goats? He said, well, he asked where the kid was. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. Did anyone ever hear the story about his VW bus that he doctored up? So in the 70s, you know, they had VW buses back then, and I don't even know where he got a hold of one, but he refabbed it. And he emptied it out, and he made in the back beds. And on the side, he had like a fabric sort of sign that said, have a nice day. It was sewn on, and in the A were two of those wiggly eyes, you know, so that when he's driving, it was going, have a nice day. And he would drive back, have a nice day. And he did it so there was like an electric panel, and you could you could control the entire car by this panel on the ceiling, you know, turning it on and turning it off, and the radios, and so we did some road trips. And because we get to sleep in the back of the truck, and we would sleep in the Denny's parking lots, wherever we were going. And one day we went on an overnight trip, and I slept in the back, and in the morning we woke up at Denny's, and I said, Dad, where are we? And he said, I don't know, go ask the waitress. And I was like, I'm too embarrassed to ask the waitress, where are we? And he's like, I don't know. So I said, okay, you know, I'm not gonna ask the waitress. And I went to the bathroom to brush my teeth in the sink of Denny's. I'm not kidding. And on the stall, it had said, welcome to Orange County. So I go out and I said, where's Orange County? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay. So we're ordering our pancakes, and I look outside, and there's a sign that says Disneyland. But it was a little sign, and I had never been to Disneyland. And I assume that when you go to Disneyland, there's a huge sign with Mickey Mouse and lights, and it's just a little sign. And I was like, oh, look, there's a mini Disneyland here. And I said, can we go? And he said, oh, fine. And that was my first and only time that I went to Disneyland. That's not true. I took my kids, and then I said, I hope you're enjoying this because it's the last time I'm going to Disneyland. That was a fun trip. The next time we took a road trip, it was I'm over my 3 minutes. I'm on my phone. The next time we took a trip, we drove to Iowa. His sister was living in Iowa, and we drove to Iowa. It took us a couple days. And we were driving over the Rockies. We had stocked up our VW bus with really nourishing foods of Starburst and Ritz crackers and tuna and Rice Krispie treats with M&Ms that I had made. And I remember going over the pass and sitting on his lap. That's when he taught me how to drive a stick. I was sitting on his lap and he'd say, first to second, second to third, there hours. I drove a stick shift. That probably wasn't so safe either, actually, I'm gonna say. It's okay. And then came the time that I brought my first boyfriend home to meet him. That was a little scary. So he was living in Sonoma, and this guy was tall. He was, you know, a good 6 foot something, and I was really scared. And we walked in, and he was on the ground working on something, I don't remember what. And we walked in, and he looks up, and he says, "Oh, he's a big one." That boyfriend didn't last very long, actually, now that I think about it. That's a big one, he said. But going back into my basket of memories from the Shiva, I think what really just stands out for me was his smile and the gratitude that I would feel when I made him smile, and his eyes would sparkle, and you just feel so proud of yourself, you know, that you managed to pull that smile out of him. And when he laughed, it was like winning the Nobel Prize, you know, you're like, oh, I made him laugh. And I have that memory in it's just there. And when the Shiva ended and we packed up all the chairs and shipped off all that food somewhere, and I decided to frame a picture of him. Because unlike at Debbie's house, I didn't have pictures all over the place. So I was looking for a picture. And I found one that he's not on a horse. And he's just a close-up, and he's looking straight into the camera, and he's got this smile. And I look at it every day, and I can just hear him saying, "I love you, kid." And he didn't say it very much. But in my heart, he's saying it, and in my head, he's saying it. And I miss him a lot, and I'm just so honored to remember a man who absolutely lived life by the fullest. It's almost hard to feel sad when you're remembering a life so well lived. You know, it's so rare that someone can live their dreams in a way that he lived his, with so much passion, and then to be successful on top of it. And he wasn't easy, and he hurt our feelings, and he made us angry. But he gave us so much, and I think to each and every one of us, and to the world, and to the horse world, and to my personal world, and to our families, and to my children, and to Debbie. And I'm sad, and I'm crying, and we're all sad, but at the end of the day, it's not the sadness that's carrying me through. It's really great joy for a life really, really well lived, and a legacy of people who love him so very much and celebrate him every single day.
Nice to be here with everyone. And before I begin, I just want to say a heartfelt thanks to Debbie for inviting me here to share a few of my memories and thoughts about Eitan. It was an amazing chapter in my life to have known him, to have worked with him, and to have been a friend. I first became aware of Eitan during a Jack Brainerd clinic we were hosting at my former New Hampshire horse farm. Must have been around 2007 or 2008, I'm guessing, but I'm not great on dates. Jack had been coming to our farm for several years, doing back-to-back extended clinics, and all students stayed on our farm in the old farmhouse. On this particular year, in the evening after the first day of riding, Jack insisted everyone gather around the TV to watch a DVD he brought. Just prior to turning it on, Jack announced that this was the finest horseman he had ever seen. And coming from Jack Brainerd, a legendary Western horseman in 4 different horse halls of fame, that got everyone's attention. The DVD was entitled Cowboy Dressage, Dances with Cows. No one was remotely prepared for what we were about to see, even though the subtitle read, When Dressage Suits Your Needs, but a Stetson Suits Your Lifestyle. We fully expected to see someone named Cody, or Colt, or Buck, or Blaze. But instead it featured someone oddly named Eitan Beth-Halachmy, an Israeli cowboy with a charmingly funny accent. An Israeli cowboy? Heck, I didn't even know they had Indians in Israel, much less cowboys. But as the video began to play, there he was, in a cowboy hat, Western clothing and tack, on his stunning brown Morgan Stallion holiday compadre. And what followed left everyone both speechless and transfixed. Holding reins so lightly they were mere gossamer threads in his hands, Eitan and compadre performed an elegant ballet of spins, extended trots, canter pirouettes reversing direction and lead with surreal softness, full side passes at the canter, tempi lead changes, Spanish walk, canter departures so effortless they appeared to be floating on a cloud. And all the while, the charismatic Eitan would be smiling, ever the showman playing to the crowd, nodding his head in time to the background music and the rhythm of compadre's movements. What we were seeing was so much more than a talented, well-trained horse and a superb rider. Rather, we were watching a perfect, truly magical blend of body, mind, and spirit, man and horse functioning as one, joyful, playful, willing, and exuberant. That video immediately changed my life with horses, as it surely did to thousands of others who had never seen such harmony on horseback. Wasting no time, I contacted Eitan about doing clinics at our farm, and the summers that followed featured several weeks hosting cowboy dressage clinics with Eitan. Now, it might be easy for someone to think that, sure, Eitan had an exceptional horse or two, so no wonder he looked so good. If one had attended one of our clinics, they would at some point have seen Eitan offer to ride a student's horse, one the student was struggling with, horse that was stiff, resistant, unwilling, and dull. And this is where Eitan's magic was truly undeniable. Eitan would get on this very same horse, do a few preliminary, quiet, subtle moves to get a feel for the horse, and then we would watch in amazement, often disbelief, as this horse softened and relaxed within minutes, tension draining from its body and seemingly come to life with Eitan in the saddle, now supple, responsive to all invisible cues. We watched in awe as Eitan turned a once quarrelsome and disconnected failure to communicate between horse and rider into a beautiful dance that was sheer poetry in motion, and a horse whose body, language clearly whispered, "Thank you." I immediately became a serious and dedicated student, and Eitan my patient mentor. Then, in what was certainly the greatest honor of my equestrian life, Eitan invited me to be his student during the cowboy dressage demonstration clinics at the upcoming World Equestrian Games 2010 in Kentucky. Student or crash test dummy, I wasn't sure which, but either way I could hardly say no, even though I was petrified at the thought. I'm sure most of you here know that it was as Eitan was exiting the arena following his brilliant performance during the opening ceremonies that Eitan suffered a near-fatal arterial fibrillation episode, proving that God loves horses and horsemen and that he had other plans for Eitan. There was a doctor in the nearby stands who initially didn't want to attend due to the large crowds, but caved into his wife's insistence that they go. The only seats available at the late date they bought their tickets were at the exit point of the arena. He was watching Eitan ride out, opposite where he was sitting, when suddenly Eitan rocked, wavered, and fell unconscious from the saddle to the ground. But as a doctor, he recognized in an instant the exact nature of the medical emergency, ran to him from the stands, and took immediate action that unquestionably saved Eitan's life. And though Eitan spent the World Equestrian Games in the ER at the University of Kentucky Hospital, he was honored during the closing ceremonies by appearing on the gigantic Jumbotron video screen with a heartfelt message of thanks to everyone for their concern and prayers. And thus, the equestrian world was blessed with Eitan for another 15 years. Eitan was truly a force of nature, and undaunted by merely a near-death experience, he was back in the saddle in no time. I was once again humbled and honored when Eitan asked me to come to Art Perry's stunning ranch in the Santa Ynez Valley of California and ride with he and Jack Brainerd in the Light Hands Horsemanship Clinic 2011. The clinic featured many illustrious horsemen besides Eitan and Jack. Also appearing were Lester Buckley, John Ensign, Sheila Varian, and Richard Winters. But in this or any constellation of stellar horsemen, Eitan's star shone the brightest among them, for he had no equal. Aside from Eitan's greatest loves in life, those of course being Debbie first and foremost, then horses, Eitan also loved donuts. I remember being a guest at Jack's house in Whitesboro, Texas, along with Eitan, and each morning's breakfast ritual required a careful analysis, discussion, debate, and final selection of the perfect donut to start the day. At a clinic in Pennsylvania, there was an Amish community close to the clinic venue. One Amish family sold homemade donuts from their farmhouse kitchen door, but you had to get there early as the donuts usually sold out by 6 a.m. So I got assigned to get up before dawn to go and buy donuts while they lasted. Eitan's passions in life were many and varied. Eitan had numerous talents besides being an equestrian savant. His many video productions put his creative side in the visual arts on full display, along with his expertise in computer graphics. I got to witness this firsthand when he used me in his very first cowboy dressage walk trot test #1 video in New Hampshire in 2012 during a break between clinics. Eitan always had a precise and crystal clear vision of what he wanted the end product to be. But to my consternation, he never shared that video with me in advance, and as a result, I had no idea what he was going to ask for next. Everything he had me do was unrehearsed and without the benefit of any preparation on my part. Knowing Eitan's genius, it's no surprise he pulled it off, and in the process, he managed to capture the spirit of horseback riding in what could have been a mundane instructional video in the hands of a person of lesser vision and talent. That video is still available on his website today, and whenever I watch it, I'm reminded of the singular privilege I had back then to be a student of such an extraordinary master horseman. Standing before you now, reflecting upon the impact Eitan had on me and all of you and horsemen the world over, it's still hard to believe Eitan is no longer with us, physically at least. But in truth, Eitan is not gone at all. For the vast knowledge of horses he shared with everyone, knowledge that enlightened us back then and lives with us still today, many years later. And the inspiration he provided has made us all not just better horsemen, but better people. I'm fully confident that Eitan is in heaven as I speak, riding heavenly horses, deserving of his artistry and skill. And as we gather in celebration of Eitan's remarkable life today, I only hope there is also a heavenly Amish donut shop nearby to keep a smile on that incomparable cowboy's face.
Our next letter comes from Mandy Proven from Australia. I still remember the first time I met Eitan, walking into his school of horsemanship with a mix of nerves and awe. I had seen him ride Santa Fe Renegade online, and it was like watching poetry in motion. But nothing prepared me for the moment I got to ride Santa Fe myself. That horse carried not just grace, but the quiet wisdom of Eitan's years of partnership and patience. To me, to sit in that saddle was to step into something sacred. In the arena, Eitan didn't just coach. He invited you into a philosophy. He taught that true horsemanship isn't about control, it's about connection. About listening more than commanding, about softness, timing, and trust. His words were few, but his presence was profound. Every gesture, every connection, every quiet nod held layers of meaning. What Eitan gave was more than technique.
He showed that riding could be a dance, not a duel. I have one regret, that I had not met you sooner. If only I had, I could have shared many more learning moments with you. More rides, more quiet wisdom, more time soaking in the depth of your knowledge and your heart. I made a promise to Eitan to carry his vision of cowboy dressage to Australia, and will continue to do so with pride. Every clinic, every ride, every rider we support is part of that promise. His legacy lives in the way we ride from the heart, in the way we honor the horse, and in the way we build community through kindness and feel. Thank you, Eitan, for the knowledge, the spark, and the soul you shared with us. You were, and always will be, the true heart of horsemanship. We will miss you. Lots of love, Mandy and Steve. The next letter comes from Lisa Bruin in the UK. I'd followed Eitan online for years before I actually got to meet him. Mark and I arranged our holidays so we could spend time learning from Eitan. I emailed him, giving him the dates, and I got a short email back saying, yeah, okay, bring your big hat, not your riding hat. We arrived at Wolf Creek Ranch, and I told Eitan how excited I was to be learning from him. And he turned around and he said, I'm not going to teach you anything. A little perplexed, I said, what do you mean? We've come from the UK to learn from you. He laughed and he said, Lisa, I am not going to teach you anything. I am going to inspire you. Over the years I spent with Eitan, I found him to be a strong-minded, independent, thinking perfectionist with a flair for art, and his horsemanship was the art. I look back often on my time with him yelling, Lisa, do less. Between Eitan, Santa Fe, and Cheyenne, I did learn. I learned to be strong-minded, independent thinking, striving to be a perfectionist. I too look upon horsemanship as an art form. I miss Eitan terribly, but I look upon my time with him with tremendous fondness. We laughed until we cried. We had deep conversations about horses and robust ones about riding. The biggest thing I learned from Eitan was to be me. God bless you, Eitan. You sure did inspire. Okay, this next letter comes from Phil and Tanya in Australia. It is both a great honor and a daunting task to be invited to share your memories and lessons from a mentor like Eitan. I can only imagine how many of these will start with, where do I start? Or how can you put this into words? But then I am reminded of one of the greatest lessons I learned from Eitan. You can only be you. And I am inspired to share my perspective. Eitan just had a way to give depth and meaning to the simplest of statements. Even you can only be you. Seems so, well, simple or obvious, or I don't know what, but when he said something like that, he had a way of speaking to your soul. For it meant something profound, and it caused you to grow as a person right there on the spot. I remember being nervous about teaching in front of Eitan at a clinic he and Deb called by, and I remember saying to Deb, I'm nervous. I don't want to let Eitan down. And she said, you won't let him down. He thinks of everyone in terms of how great they can be. not how great they are right now. And in that moment, these words simultaneously calmed me, and it lit a fire in me to live a life of continued growth. 8 was generous with his time and with his offering of opportunities, giving Phil and I both endless time and lessons, both on and off the horses. Some of our fondest memories are of sitting around the table or in the lounge room and discussing maneuvers of training styles, and one time Phil and I both crawling around on the floor to discuss pirouettes. He had a way of having discussions as if we were all equals, even though everyone in the room knew his knowledge far surpassed ours. He still listened intently and was willing to have open discussions, which made you feel relaxed enough to say the weird things you were thinking, because he might disagree, but he never made you feel silly or less than. I appreciate his point-blank honesty. I remember cracking a joke once, and he did not laugh. I said, "Come on, Eitan, that was funny." He gave me just a deadpan face and said, "You are not funny." Which sounds mean, and it could have been, but he just said it so flat and unemotional that it was just about the nicest way anyone could say something like that. In any case, it was about 2 days later, and I said something funny, and he just laughed, and he said, "Hey, that was really funny. Maybe you are funny after all." And what brought us to him, cowboy dressage. What a wonderful gift for horses and their humans. I knew I could keep riding all day, so I'll finish up with something I wrote after one of my visits when I was blessed to have a lesson on Santa Fe. What I learned from the masters. Over the past few days, I have been honored to ride with Eitan Beth-Halachmy at his and his wife's Deb's place in California. I have much to share about my visits and lessons I have learned and the horses I have been able to ride. But what I wanted to share, some of the things I have learned from the masters, Eitan and the amazing stallion, Santa Fe Renegade. First, some of the things I picked up from listening to and riding with 8. Be generous with your time. Have patience. Share your gifts. If you don't get something the first time, don't be afraid to stop and ask again. It's not the end of the world if you have to stop and start again. Have a good sense of humor. Eat the donuts. Invest in people. Be kind. Never stop learning. Try things. Let the horse teach you. To do things properly is a lot harder than you think. And what I learned from riding Santa Fe, and 8 too, be patient. Even if someone isn't explaining something very well, try to understand. Remain cheeky, even in an old age. Sometimes you are going to be the best part of someone's day. Help people understand you. Keep your talents fresh. You never know when you are going to be able to show them off. Be proud. Be generous. You can be powerful and light at the same time. Thanks, 8. This next letter comes from Annie Judd in Florida. I am honored to be able to send this message to those of you who are here to celebrate the life of the one and only 8. Right there tells you that he was an original, becoming so famous that he could simply go by 8. Not that Eitan Beth-Halachmy needed shortening. So now you realize that this letter is in the tone that my friendship with 8 was. Yes, he was the quintessential horseman. Hopefully no one came up with that adjective here yet. A word that describes him so perfectly. I could talk about how great he was, but surely that has been covered by now. My friend would be distressed if I spoke of him telling everyone here what they already know. So I think it is best to go down memory lane and focus on the fun and the wonderful years we shared as friends. It all started when I was judging a Morgan show in Reno. I remember so vividly seeing this cowboy out in the warm-up arena in the morning working his horse. Was it that memorable? Not at the moment, but it became so as the day went on. The cowboy was not in showy clothes, nor were there any Western classes in that session. When we broke for lunch, I again saw the cowboy sitting astride the same horse, chatting with other horsemen. When I returned from the lunch break, yep, he was still out there, loping a circle or two. The session went for several hours. Then finally, the cowboy, the same horse, same work equipment, entered the ring. He had a very nice horse, and although he was not in fancy show gear, I became mesmerized until I called for the walk. This gentleman had some interesting riding habits too, looking about into the stands and rubbing his nose, which later became his trademark of his showroom. So what happened when the announcer said walk? Everyone in the class walked except that cowboy. I asked the announcer to ask again for the walk. The cowboy kept jogging. It seemed like forever, and he didn't seem to notice everyone else was walking. So as he jogged by me, I stepped forward and I shouted, "Sir, walk now, please." That was the beginning of my friendship with 8. And still, till my last visit with him, he told me how embarrassed he was. I told him how sad I was to have to beat his nice horse. That was our friendship. We pick at one another and then hug, and I was honored to see 8 begin his road to greatness after his first showing Morgan's competitively. Then the exhibitions began and the showman developed. After gaining such huge support and leaving many a top horseman in wonder and often jealous of his success, I watched the evolution and the development of what this long journey from Israel was all about. His love and passion for the development of a horse of any size, shape, or color into a responsive animal. That was a natural progression to cowboy dressage. Taking the essence of dressage to a simpler, more attainable level for any horse and rider team appears to me to have been the goal that young Israeli boy always wanted to do. And he combined it with his dream of becoming an American cowboy. What an honor to have been involved as a student, trainer, teacher, and rider, as well as a friend with this amazing man. Although my discipline is not where 8 evolved, every moment I spent learning in his presence, I have applied to my own equine career as a trainer, teacher, and judge. I owe him my successes. He rides with me daily still in my heart, and my students know him as if they had actually met him. That is a legacy few can leave behind. Before I finish this, I have to include one more important element in the making of the legend of 8. His beautiful and amazing wife, Debbie, was the perfect partner for him. As he was not always an easygoing kind of guy, I stood back and I watched how she nurtured, guided, and and supported Eitan in ways few women could have done. Together as a team, Eitan Beth-Halachmy reached his childhood dream. He became the quintessential horseman. One last thing. I was honored to have spent the last year doing online interviews with Eitan for a book about his life. We didn't get to the more modern day interviews, but what an amazing life story he shared with me. Toying with how to proceed with this information as a book, or simply this collection of interviews in a video format. So this is my dilemma. Stay tuned. I am sure that 8 will see to it that it is done as he wants. He always won the arguments with me, darn it. And our last letter is from Leslie Deutsch in Scotland. I'm going to keep this short, not because there isn't anything to write about 8. I'm sure someone will write a whole book about him someday. But because most everything about him has probably already been said today. 8 was a very special and unique human being, the likes of which we won't be seeing again. He touched many people's lives in many ways. Here is how he touched mine. I had already been in the horse business for almost 40 years when I met 8, from Grand Prix jumping to dressage, colt starting, and horsemanship. I had learned and taught a lot of disciplines. Then here comes this man with the funny accents and funny ideas and all the things, cowboy, dressage. Really? He's got to be nuts. Then I met both him and Deb. Bingo, I was sold. There are so many reasons cowboy dressage is a winner, and those reasons have probably all been brought up today. But for me, there is one special and unique fact, just like the man who created it, about this new discipline that sold me: inclusiveness. Inclusiveness is so underrated and so absent in not only the horse world, but in so many aspects of our lives in general. 8 created the perfect place for anyone with an equine friend, partner, to be able to shine at whatever level they felt comfortable and capable. In hand, at liberty, walk only, walk to lope, gated, even freestyle, a place for everyone. Inclusiveness also played a huge part in how 8 dealt with those around him. I often ask the question, what do you think about that? I would hear the same question asked of his students in his clinics and when working with cowboy dressage partners. All of this came at a time in my life when I was losing some of the sparkle of my life in horses. And I felt myself rejuvenated by 8 and his creation of cowboy dressage. Yes, I am now retired and living in Scotland, but those last few years of life at Blue Fountain Farms, spending time with 8 and Deb and cowboy dressage, will always be fondly remembered. Leslie Deutsch.
I'll tell you, in the back, there are 2 baskets of pita bread. The idea here was that my father's favorite food was pita and hummus, although it actually wasn't, it was donuts.
And I walked by, and he's bent over in the automotive section eating a sugar donut. So that I can't see him, like, shit! And and there's sugar on his face, sugar on his stomach. And he says,